Welcome to Boxing During Dinner, David, and...
One word. Wow.
Wow. If Gus Johnson was watching the fight, his head blew up. And I know I've used that before, but Gus Johnson, he screams a lot and his head blows up a lot. But Manny Pacquiao laying flat on the floor after a Juan Manuel Marquez right hand. Obviously, we're recapping the fight of the year, the knockout of the year. Juan Manuel Marquez knocks out Manny Pacquiao in 6 rounds Saturday night at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. And David, last week on the show, I came here and I said Juan Manuel Marquez would win. Never did I expect that I'd see an unconscious Manny Pacquiao on the ground.
It takes a lot to make me speechless. And in that instant, I saw immediately where that punch had landed. And Pacquiao went face down and I froze. I imagine that everybody who saw that froze, because anybody who picked Marquez, and very few people were picking him to win by knockout. A lot of people picked him to win because, maybe he had the style to eventually figure him out. Ben Thompson from Fight Hype looks like a prophet here because he's been predicting Marquez would win by knockout, but anybody who said that with conviction looked like a lunatic before this fight. It's one of those moments in sports that is etched in your mind, and for the months and years after this, we're going to be seeing that image of Manny Pacquiao dropping face first onto the canvas and not moving.
I couldn't stop talking about it after the fight. I was in Las Vegas covering the fight for Telemundo as part of my production duties for Telemundo, and I was watching it in the media room. We had to get ready for a live shot that night right after the fight. So I'm watching it in the media room, and I'm sitting next to Karim, who works with me. I'm sitting next to George Sedano, who's a radio show host here in Miami, Florida. And we were speechless. I mean, I stood up and I screamed. I was like, "Whoa!" Everybody was like running around. I mean, there was chaos. It was breaking news. If you've ever worked in a TV news department, when there's breaking news, you see people running all over the place. That's what it seemed like. It was bigger than a sporting event. It was an event for the ages. Manny Pacquiao, who's a fighter that transcends sports. Everybody knows who Manny Pacquiao is. I got texts from people today who were asking me who the hell Juan Manuel Marquez was, because they know the name Manny Pacquiao. They saw he lost, and they're like, "What the hell just happened here?"
Right, and some guy puts him on his back. On his face,
on his
rather.
face.
It's interesting that the biggest storyline is not necessarily what Marquez did; it's what happened to Pacquiao. But I don't think that this is such a fluke punch as some people might want to believe. Pacquiao did what makes Pacquiao so exciting and so susceptible to counter punches, which is he smelled blood, and the article I wrote for BoxingDuringDinner.com. In this moment, he sees the blood of the bull. He's the matador. The problem is, Marquez is every bit the matador himself. He recognizes that Pacquiao comes in off balance with that right jab. Marquez slips to Pacquiao's right, and as maybe a prime Pacquiao already got that left hand in, but by the time he was even in a position to turn and throw that rocket left hand that he always finds a way to use to his advantage, and he did. That's the fight that the punch that broke Marquez's nose. Marquez was literally set up for a picture-perfect punch, and I saw something that said to call it the perfect punch would be understating what that punch was and what that punch embodies for Marquez and now for the entire sport of boxing. This is the pinnacle moment of 2012 for sport, and you can think, in a scenario, you've got a guy, and let's say in baseball, you're down 11-0 in the final inning. You can't hit a 12-run home run to win the game. But in boxing, one punch can change everything, and it is now going to be etched in people's minds forever.
Exactly, and even in picking Marquez to win the fight, he drops Pacquiao in the third round, which was
surprising enough.
Pretty surprising, right? Surprising enough, seeing Pacquiao on his back. I mean, it's been about 50 fights since anybody's dropped Pacquiao, and even then, Pacquiao started dominating the fight after that.
Yeah.
He drops Marquez, he hurts him with a couple shots, breaks his nose. He looked like he was well on his way to winning a decision.
Yep.
I mean, I was watching that 6th round, and in my mind I said, you know what? I guess Pacquiao's back. He's going to win this fight by decision, and then boom, Marquez knocks him out. And David, aside from the fact that he tried to attack Marquez, I mean, he kind of like started pawing with that jab. I think he got a little confident at the end of the round. He knew the round was about to end. it was a pretty weak jab that he let loose there, and all of a sudden he gets cracked and he's out. But what moments of horror! I mean, and this is legit. I mean, I'm not even playing around. For about 15-20 seconds, I thought Manny Pacquiao could possibly be dead. The way he fell face first, the way he landed, the way he just laid there motionless, it was pretty scary. And then, since I was watching it in the media room, they kept cutting to shots of Jinky, his wife, and it was almost a scene, like you see when you go down the street and there's police tape, and all of a sudden the wife of some guy that got killed is trying to rush to the scene. That's what it seemed like. It was scary. I was glad to finally see Manny Pacquiao move, but it was a really scary situation for a couple of seconds.
And we could get into the politics of what is or isn't right in the sport. I'm not personally a fan of when the Miguel Cotto beating against Antonio Margarito, for example, when there were constantly shots of his son crying in his mother's arms. This is another example where Jinky Pacquiao is hysterical, and they're focusing in on that. It adds to the drama. I mean, I guess it's a very vivid statement visually of what people are experiencing in that moment. No more so than the wife of the fighter, who was just probably thinking, if we thought that something seriously bad had happened to Manny Pacquiao, imagine the thoughts that are running through his wife's head.
Imagine his wife. And that press room, David. So many people, like you said, that it's hard for an event to occur to leave you speechless, and so many people were speechless. I had a few people come up to me and tell me that they had like palpitations after the fight. I mean, this event was amazing. I mean, it was fight of the year, knockout of the year, all in one, maybe even round of the year.
I don't know if it was fight of the year. I might have an exception to that, but everything else that you want to call it, round of the year, knockout of the year, no question.
Yeah, there's some great fights this year, like Rios Alvarado that took place this year. But Juan Manuel Marquez, what a great guy. I mean, this is a guy that he's very educated, well-spoken, very nice guy, very accessible to the media. He's a guy that hasn't reached that level of superstardom that Manny Pacquiao has, even though their 3 previous fights are as close as any 3 fights could be.
In the history of the sport, maybe.
And somebody asked me a good question today. They're like, all right, these guys have fought 3 times. Sure, Pacquiao has won 2 of the 3 on the judges' scorecards, I guess officially. And why is it that Manny Pacquiao is so huge and Juan Manuel Marquez isn't? And I was explaining the domination that Pacquiao did, throughout the years, especially after the first and second Marquez fight. But Juan Manuel Marquez finally gets the credit he's deserved all these years. He's a great fighter, and he's one of the best in this era.
I hope this is Marquez's moment of redemption, and that people really do finally give him his due. It's interesting, and I think the reason Marquez was in a position to even win this fight is because of what you mentioned. He took a much different career path than Pacquiao did. Pacquiao's name is littered with De La Hoya, Cotto, Margarito, Shane Mosley, legends of his era. Marquez has guys like Juan Diaz, Michael Katsidis, a loss to Chris John and stuff like that, Joel Casamayor, who are not those guys. Pacquiao has the crowd-pleasing style. He's offensive. He's fast. It's exciting to watch.
Joel Casamayor was a great fighter, but he was way past his prime when he fought Marquez.
Exactly. And Marquez doesn't have necessarily what is visually the more appealing style. He's never in a boring fight, but he's not. He doesn't look like the guy who's your legend, who's your king of the ring type of thing. But then here he is in his moment of coronation, with his hands held high, and I think it's an indelible image of his gloves raised up. You just see in his face, that moment that he had worked so hard for. And again, in the article I wrote on our website, it's just Marquez has had Pacquiao in his lens. You can't think of a fighter who had more of a singular focused goal over the past several years than Marquez. I think this is absolutely the pinnacle of his career, and I don't know if we're going to get to this, but I think that Pacquiao and Marquez should both retire. Neither of these guys has anything left to prove in the sport. Marquez especially, literally has just written the perfect storybook ending to a career should he... There are awesome fights for him to make, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see him fight Brandon Rios as a spectator, but as a purist of the sport, and for legacy's sake, this guy is 39 years old, and he is not going to put in a better performance than he did on Saturday.
And I agree with you.
Nothing left to prove.
I agree with you on both ends. For Marquez, it's a great way to say goodbye. For Pacquiao, you were knocked out cold for the first time in your championship career, and you're a guy that's made millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in the last few years. He's a very rich man. He has He has money to last him his entire life if he's cautious with it, which it seems like he is. He doesn't seem like a guy who would throw away his money. I mean,
well, at least not anymore. He's
right,
very giving, but
you never know. But he should retire now. I don't, I'm not gonna taint Juan Manuel Marquez's performance because to me he's a great fighter, and I thought he beat Pacquiao the third fight. But there's always gonna exist that question mark. Angel Heredia in his corner, he's a guy that prepared him physically for this fight. Juan Manuel Marquez looked in the best physical shape I have ever seen him look in his entire life. I mean, he was the smaller guy on the scales, but he wasn't the smaller guy physically.
Right.
I mean, he was huge. He was absolutely huge, and then he displays this uncanny power in the fight, dropping Pacquiao in the third and sixth round. In the sixth, he dropped him for good. So there's gonna be those doubters that are gonna say, was he on HGH? Was he on some sort of PED? All those questions are gonna exist.
we could sit here and kind of, use all sorts of hearsay. And some of it may or may not be valid. You can't disagree with the fact that he has a proven steroid distributor and user in
Right.
in his strength and conditioning coach. So sure, I mean there are rightfully red flags to be waved around in that zone because of what his strength and conditioning trainer has in his history. But the moment is the moment. Nevertheless, Manny Pacquiao.
And you could say the same thing for other guys, like Nonito Donaire has Victor Conti, and Victor Conti's like he is Balco, I mean
Right.
him and Angel Heredia had a
And
relationship.
Victor Conti also had Andre Berto.
Andre
who
Berto
did test positive for steroids.
Exactly. So, he didn't. Juan Manuel Marquez did not test positive. So,
Innocent until proven guilty.
exactly. But also on the card, David, great fight between Michael Farenas of the Philippines and Yuriorkis Gamboa. Gamboa comes back after 50 months and still makes some of the same mistakes he's made in the past. Gets a little careless, gets a little reckless, and he tasted the canvas. And they kept on, the HBO guys kept on talking about how Gamboa's gone down a whole bunch of times in his career. This is the first time I actually think he was hurt.
Yeah,
in
when
his career.
when he went down, I agree. I happen to listen to the top rank stream, which I think, for the record, is absolutely one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. But on a separate note,
No comment.
They kept making the comment about how Gamboa was reckless and careless and hot dogging was the thing they wanted to call it. Yeah, he's always fought that way. But I agree, that right hand that Farenas put on Gamboa's chin is in a lot of ways similar to the fight ending punch that Pacquiao got landed on his chin.
Right, and I spoke to Tony Gonzalez, Gamboa's manager.
He's a great tight end also.
He is a great tight end. I spoke to him after the fight. I've known Tony for a long time, good friend. And I told him, Tony, thoughts on the fight? He said he was a little rusty. They want to get him back in the ring as soon as possible. He said February is the target month for Gamboa to come back. And I told him, for whatever it's worth, that punch that Farenas landed on Gamboa would have knocked out most fighters.
Yeah.
And Gamboa took it and he just stood right back up and won the fight pretty easily. So kudos to Yuriorkis Gamboa. Also on the card, Mercito Hesta let me down. I thought he was going to win the fight. Instead, Miguel Vasquez, one of the toughest guys to face in boxing, made him look foolish.
Yeah, Vasquez was so impressive to me, and he's one of those guys who... He's like the lowest risk, lowest reward that there is, unless a guy really thinks that he wants to win a belt like Hesta in this fight. But he outclassed him as if Hesta didn't even belong in the ring with him. I mean, Vasquez looked phenomenal.
Biggest disappointment of the night, Javier Fortuna not knocking out Patrick Hyden. Everybody that was there in Vegas, and I spoke to Ryan Sangalia, I spoke to Mark Ortega, I spoke to tons of guys over there, Steve Zemak. Everybody thought this fight was going to end in 1 or 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Instead, it goes the distance. But the biggest surprise to me of the night was Snooki's a boxing promoter?
She's promoted more fights than 50 Cent at this point. She is, for those of you not, following the news, is Javier Fortuna's promoter.
No, Patrick Hyland.
Or Patrick Hyland. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Apparently she has all these Irish boxers. To me, the quote of the week, John Rudy, who's one of the top publicists in boxing, he's been around forever. We're talking about Patrick Hyland and Snooki boxing, and he goes, "Hey, I keep hearing about this Snooki. Who the hell is Snooki?" He had no clue who she was. I had to point point Snooki out to John Beirudi so he can know who she was and explain to him. But lastly, because Alex is giving us the wrap
sure.
it up.
We're at 18 minutes.
No, I started that a little early.
Oh, all right.
But so that's good news. Jose Ramirez debuts, wins his fight. This is a kid that I expect big things from, and Top Rank not only has him, but has Oscar Valdez and Felix Verdejo, the future of boxing.
Yeah, those guys will be back soon. A great debut for Ramirez. I can't wait to see what happens with these guys and how quickly they're moved on. He looked good in his first fight. I know we're talking about what's happened this weekend. We've got the return of Amir Khan versus the other Carlos Molina.
The other Carlos Molina, not my man crush.
Right, and then Jorge Arce taking on Nonito Donaire. Armando, this is my chance to volley it to you. What are your picks?
Donaire by knockout early. Jorge Arce has no business being in the ring with Nonito Donaire. And Amir Khan wins. It's going to be a tough fight for him, coming back from that knockout. But I think he adjusts. I think he's not going to get careless. I think we're going to see a very cautious Amir Khan use his boxing skills, which he has plenty of.
Right.
He is an excellent boxer.
Fantastic.
And he's going to win this fight by decision.
Yeah, I think if Amir Khan can find a way to transform himself into the boxer that he was bred to be and stop trading punches like the guy he shouldn't be, it's the problem is Khan has the power to trade with guys, but he does not have the chin to trade with guys, and that's been proven over and over again, unfortunately. Molina's a light puncher. I think this is an opportunity for Khan to come back in an impressive way, get in some rounds after being out of the ring for a while. I got the same picks as you. I expect Khan to kind of pick Molina apart, and I think Arce might die on Saturday. I don't mean to say that with any lack of reverence. And then
hopefully
or
we'll
respect,
see Donaire against Rigondeaux, who fights the same night, or against Abner Mares. But that's it for boxing during dinner, because so far it's been boxing during drinking, and I'm hungry, so I need to eat. But hell of a December to end the year, a great year of boxing. And I was on a talk show today, and I told the guy, hey, look, people say boxing is a dying sport.
Yeah.
But events like this, prove otherwise. So
exactly.
Hopes to another big year in boxing. We'll be back next week. We're not gonna wrap the year up just yet.
No.
There's still boxing to go forward. But last big fight of the year, Juan Manuel Marquez, performance of I don't know in the last however many years. That's one of the.
It's one that we'll tell our kids about.
Lasting memory.
Yep.
And I love it.
And I love you.
I love you guys. And David. And Alex.
We'll see you guys next week.